thank everyone for coming out on this beautiful, beautiful Sacramento morning. But we're here because winter is coming and we need to plan for the winter, and we need to make sure that first of all, no one should be homeless in Sacramento, but if, God forbid, we have women and families, even families with very small children who are homeless, we need to make sure that they have a safe place to spend the night. I'm Joan Burke, and I work here at Loaves Fishes, and we have a number of people who are going to speak about what it's like to be homeless this morning. We're here in front of this memorial wall, and these names that you see on this wall are all homeless people who have died. And when it comes to shelter, sometimes it literally is a matter of life and death. We're particularly concerned about the women who are homeless and cannot get into a shelter. Women are vulnerable in so many ways that men are not. And families who need a safe place to know that their children are safe at night. We also have many elderly people, people in wheelchairs, in walkers who are disabled. There are a lot of different reasons why someone might become homeless. But whatever the reasons, whatever the circumstance, we as a community must provide shelter for those people in need. I'd like to introduce Cynthia Torres. She is the co-director of Mary House, which is our daytime drop-in resource center for homeless women and single dads and children. Cynthia?
Good morning. Like Joan said, I'm the co-director of Mary House, a daytime shelter for homeless women and children. We do not have shelter beds at Mary House, but we are a place of rest and respite for homeless families. I stand before you today to tell you that real women and children sleep outside in Sacramento each night. They are not numbers, statistics, or demographic profiles. They are real human beings. Here at Mary House, we sit with homeless mothers with babies on their laps, and they tell us their stories. They tell us they are sleeping in cars, in garages, in parks, and by the river. They tell us they have called the shelters and have been told over and over that they are full, and to call again the next day. And they do. And they call, and they call. And repeatedly, they are told about long waiting lists and that there is no room at the inn. Now, while the weather is warm, the circumstances are dire. This winter, the circumstances will be horrific. This winter, when it is cold, wet, and rainy, women will come to Mary House, and we will tell these women with babies on their laps that there is no shelter for them. We will tell them that in Sacramento County, there is no room at the inn. This press conference is being held today to call attention to the fact that Sacramento County is not providing any additional shelter beds for homeless families this winter. In the news every day, we see stories about children sleeping in the streets in third world countries. We are here today to make sure that people know that children are sleeping in the streets in Sacramento, California. This is a humanitarian crisis and one that needs immediate attention. Thank you.
And now I would like to introduce Kayana Alexander. Please come up, Kayana, who will share her situation with you.
Hello. My name is Kayana Alexander, and I'm a mother of 5 children, and also I have a spouse. We were put in this situation not because of drugs or alcohol or anything like that, because we don't use those substances. But we were put in this situation because my house had caught on fire. So it put me and my family without a place. So you would think that, you're without a place, and you hear about all these resources that are out there that can help you and your children or whatever it may be when you're in time of need, that you can go grab and, take a hold of it. Well, I got some of those resources, and a lot of those resources was not available. Matter of fact, there was none. I called a lot of the shelters. I have called a lot of the shelters that was on the list that was given to me for me and my family, but there was none to be found. They say to, call first thing in the morning, check in, keep calling. Well, we had our fire in our home almost 2 months ago, and here it is still. I still haven't had any help. I just want to know that, me and my children, we've been through a lot, and we've been staying here and there. All the money that we had saved is now gone, because the money that we had saved, we had to use it for our own hotel use. Now that's gone, we don't have anywhere to go. So what's next? The next thing is that do I keep calling and keep getting a response of we don't have anything or whatnot? It's just terrible, because my children are young, and they haven't been able to go to school due to these circumstances, because we don't have permanent housing. We don't have a permanent housing to go anywhere to live. So my children have been without school. They have been without a lot of things, just playing with kids at their age, being kids themselves. So my heart goes out to my children, because they're missing out on a lot of things, as well as my whole family. So if anything that I can do to try to get the word out as far as housing, it's not just people who's, that have just been on drugs, or, have housing or a housing problem or alcohol problem. There's people out there that really have a lot of things else, a lot of things that's going on with themselves, the reason why they don't have a home. So if there's anything that I can do, I will do anything to try to get that help for a shelter for the winter, because I know how it is, because we have stayed in places where, was not suitable. Matter of fact, we have stayed in our car one time because we didn't have any money until the next day. So I totally understand where it's cold, and it's cold out there. It's cold out there at nighttime, and it's not cool. So we just need all the help that we can get as far as sheltering for each one of us that is homeless today, or either tomorrow for the children. Anything I can do, or anything that's out there that's listening. If you got a heart or whatever, we just would like for you guys to, take heed to it, because it really is life, and things can happen while you're out there without a place.
Thank you, Kayana. And now I'd like to introduce Bob Erlenbush, who's the Executive Director of the Sacramento Housing Alliance.
Good job, Bob. Good job.
Good morning. Again, I'm Bob Erlenbush, Erlenbusch. I'm the Executive Director for the Sacramento Housing Alliance. And the SAC Housing Alliance has joined forces with Loaves Fishes and many people standing around at this press conference, because we've got 41 days. What does that mean? 41 days until the winter shelter should start. Historically, the Board of Supervisors, going back to 2008, has provided close to $1 million for winter shelter. Then it slid to $700,000. Then a rapid plummet to $250,000 last year to zero this year, with 41 days and counting. That is unacceptable. That's unconscionable for the Board of Supervisors to walk away from specifically women and children, single fathers, and people with disabilities. We'll try to give the Board of Supervisors the benefit of the doubt that they're confused. Confused because there are in fact two winter programs. One is Winter Sanctuary and one is Winter Shelter. Winter Sanctuary is provided in the last couple of years by the churches, synagogues, and temples stepping up to try to provide emergency shelter during the cold and wet weather months to single adults. Now, not every single adult, homeless single adult, gets into Winter Sanctuary. Why? Because they're screened for mental health problems, substance abuse issues, and they are screened out because it's deemed that they may not be appropriate for a church or a synagogue or a temple. We understand that, but that also leaves some of our most vulnerable single adults out in the cold. Then there's Winter Shelter. Winter Shelter is the county's responsibility, and they are turning their backs on women and children and the rest of the most vulnerable population in Sacramento. Maybe the Board of Supervisors is confused because they helped create a new nonprofit, Sacramento Steps Forward. Sacramento Steps Forward just hired its executive director a month ago. They have a very, very small staff. They are a nonprofit specifically set up to administer federal homeless funds. They're not a direct service program. It's not their mission to provide winter shelter. It's not in their business plan to provide winter shelter or any other kind of direct service program. As a matter of fact, their executive director, at the instruction of their board of directors, just wrote an editorial that was published in the local Sacramento press to that effect. The bottom line is that we've got 41 days for the Board of Supervisors to step up, and it will be heartbreaking if we have to put one more name of a person who passed away this winter because they had no room at the inn. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And shelters are so important for safety, but they're also a lifeline for a mom who's homeless. It can be the starting point where she finds out about programs that can help her get out of homelessness and can help her regain a home for herself and her children. And I'm very proud to introduce to you Denisha Farrell, who will talk about her circumstances. Thank you, Denisha.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Denisha. I too didn't become homeless because of drugs or alcohol. I lost my job in 2008 and since then have not been able to find gainful employment. But because of shelters, I have been able to find other resources that have made my future look brighter in that area. Me and my family became homeless in May of this year. We luckily were able to get into a shelter which we had to stay at for close to 4 months. But because of the shelter, we have been able to gain housing. We moved into our new apartment on the 2nd of this month. We have networked a lot, and I'm getting job training right now, and a lot of services that I never would have known were out there if it wasn't because of the shelter that we were in. So to everyone out there that is homeless or may become homeless or knows someone that is homeless, getting the word out about shelters and being able to go into one
is just a great opportunity. And knowing that the winter season is coming and that it will be cold outside and there will be a lot of families out there that will have to be out on the sidewalk, which is something that we feared a lot. Being in a shelter is a means of stability, knowing that our children were safe and that we were safe and that we had a place to go to every night. It's just really helpful. So that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bob Erlenbush mentioned the op-ed piece in the Sacramento Press yesterday about the need for this whole community to come together to make sure that we can provide for families who are homeless. And I would like to acknowledge that the leader of Sacramento Steps Forward, Ben, is here with us today.
Good job, Ben. Good job.
Our next speaker is Angela Hassel. She is the director of Mustard Seed, an emergency school for homeless children here at Loaves and Fishes.
Thank you all for coming here this morning. As Joan said, my name is Angela Hassel. I'm the director of Mustard Seed School. We provide emergency services for the homeless children here at Loaves and Fishes. We work in conjunction with Mary House and a lot of the other Loaves and Fishes programs to identify homeless families whose children are not currently in school. We do our best to provide them with that link between their public schools and provide them with that stability in a very traumatic and uprooted time of their lives. And we see a lot of kids go through this process of the families moving from shelter to a motel, maybe back to a shelter again, to a motel, and kind of get bounced around as the need is out there, and as there are just fewer and fewer places for them to stay as they kind of run through their options. And for the most part, we do our best to provide a safe place for them to be in school during that time. And our average is that in 3 to 4 weeks, kids are back in public school and in a more stable place, but that is an average. That's not always the case. And when that situation drags on too long and there just aren't as many options for those families as the winter months come, we see a little bit of the light go out in those kids' eyes, and a little bit of that pain kind of creeps into their day. And it's just one of the most heartbreaking situations that we could come across. So I really urge you to do whatever we can to advocate for these families and for the fact that they just need a safe place to sleep at night, and these kids really just need a roof over their heads, whether that's a shelter or a motel or whatever it may be. They just really do not need to be on the streets. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce you to an outstanding young man, Zach Andrews, who was homeless for much of the time he was in junior high school and high school. Zach?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Zach Andrews, and throughout junior high school and high school, I wasn't, able to have a great head on my shoulder because, I didn't have hope. It's just a tough time for me. I never really had a bed to call my home. I was going from home to home, staying with friends, and, kind of fending for myself and, trying to survive and eating off of them. And it was a tough time because sometimes it's not always great to just walk in somebody else's home and eat their food, So, I wasn't fortunate. Luckily, with the high school that I went to, Cordova High School and the student union, I was blessed to have them provide school school books and provide me with a yearbook that I couldn't afford and my mom couldn't afford. And you know, it was definitely a difficult situation for me. Being the oldest boy, I have 6 sisters and 2 little brothers, and I'm, you know, the oldest, so I stand out a lot. And I think it's important that children have a home, a place to call home, and it's easier on the parents, a lot less stressful, gives the kids hope, and it brightens their future because they're more motivated to have a place to call home and just to have that energy brought back up to complete their dreams. You know, luckily enough, I was able to have people around me, like you all, you know, to bring me up and tell me everything's gonna be all right when, you know, it really wasn't. So it's important that we provide shelter for the men and women and children of Sacramento to just, you know, we need to come as one. We're people. You know, we need to love one another, and it's important that the board of Sacramento provides the funding to shelter each and every one of us that aren't able to have a home. So, you know, with that said, let's come together as one. You know, like President Obama said, change. It's time for change. We need change in order to become better. Let's better ourselves and help one another. Thank you.
I don't happen to be 6'9", but I would like to update you on Zach. He's a graduate of Yuba College and Bradley College, and most recently played professional basketball in Japan. I'm very proud of him. There are a lot of unsung heroes in our community who know about homelessness and try to help people who are homeless. And I'd like to acknowledge Charlene Hunt, who is the homeless liaison for the Rancho Cordova Folsom School District. She makes sure that kids like Zach can thrive. Thank you, Charlene. Finally, I'd like to ask Pam Tureen to come up, who is, quite frankly, another unsung hero in this community. And she, well, I'll let Pam tell you what she's about, but it's very, very inspiring.
For about a year and a half, my church had been doing Safe Ground, so I got to know many of the people who were in Safe Ground. And it was obvious how hard it is once you are on the street to get a job, get a house, and pull yourself up. So my husband and I decided to rent a house for 4 men who are now living in it. One man, Mark, has gotten a job at the grocery store. The man who is deaf is on his path to get hearing aid. A second one is going to get his surgery on his arm that he needs. So it was just our opportunity to step forward and help people.
Yeah.
Our last speaker is our executive director here at Loaves Fishes, Sister Libby Fernandez. And after we finish all of the speakers, we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, and we'll do that in the shade.
Thank you. This is the opportunity for the city, the county, the community, the churches, every religious faith, every person, including our homeless themselves, to get together to come up with a plan. We don't need one big plan, we need every plan. We need extra shelter beds from all the shelters, from Sacramento Area Emergency Housing to St. John Shelter. We need hotel vouchers a week at a time to work with these families. We need transportation. We need everything, but we need it a little bit from everyone. because the miracle of loaves and fishes is it took 5 loaves and 2 fishes to serve 5,000. So each of us can put in that little piece of the miracle, and we're asking for everyone's help and support now. The last day of summer, tomorrow begins fall, and like Sacramento Housing Alliance Bob said, 41 days when we usually have shelter for families, men, women, and children. God bless you all.